On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA is a dynamic podcast that brings together some of the most influential voices in the nation.
From union leaders and elected officials to law enforcement experts who explore the pressing issues shaping America.
Through thought-provoking conversations, we empower listeners to think critically about law enforcement, political policy, and the future of our society.
Available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and all Suffolk PBA social media platforms. Tune in to On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA.
Welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandamari, the Sergeant at Arms of the PBA.
And today we're excited to have Jesse Garcia on with us. Jesse is the Suffolk County Republican Chairman and the Brookhaven Town Republican Chairman.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So, Jesse, just for everybody watching out there, what does a county or town chairman do?
Well, really what we do, we are the CEO of the political organization in our political jurisdiction. In this case, I'm the chairman of Brookhaven, so I run the Brookhaven political operation for the Republicans, and now I've been promoted to, for the last 4 or 5 years, to the Suffolk County Republican Committee. Basically, for everyone, we're in the falls, it's football season. I'm like a hybrid general manager and head coach for the political organization. We select candidates, so it's almost like making draft picks and recruit, make signing free agents. And then what we do is lay out a campaign, make sure that the operation is there. We have the resources we need in certain campaigns and all campaigns to ensure that we elect Republicans. So that's the head coach part of it. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. And I love that you made the sports analogy.
Yeah,
we do sports analogies here all the time. So as a chairman, and when you're in that candidate selection process, how much influence do you have over, say, policy versus just selecting the candidate whose policies and views kind of already align with what your values are?
Well, what we look for, first and foremost, I'm looking for someone that's involved in the community. Local Chamber of Commerce, local civic association, they're involved. Maybe they've been elected to the library board, school board. A lot of first responders, retired police officers, ambulance, EMTs and such. If you notice that, even in organized labor, we look at people who are embedded in the community. And we always look for, people, political leaders speak about having someone that has a base. Well, base doesn't mean an electoral base so much. It means like circles of influence. So, whether it's a PTA, as I said, or a Chamber of Commerce, we've seen their work already. They've been doing volunteer work already. And, I need someone, and we promote quality candidates, successful business people, especially those who really have built up, businesses, Main Street businesses on their own, or have been involved in causes that have been important in their communities. Those people who have done that on a volunteer basis, we then try and go out there and recruit to give them the opportunity to take their skills and bring them to local government, because that's the closest level of government to everybody. It impacts you on a 24-hour basis. So when we do that, that's why I think we're successful. That's why I've always said that our candidates are far more qualified than anybody else. We're not shopping or recruiting or making deals for candidates.
Right.
We're recruiting people from the community that have a base, that have a record. And I can't make someone a Republican. I can't make them a conservative. I have to see what their philosophies are, because if I got to force them to have our principles and our ideals, at one point or another, they're going to stray from that, and their true character is going to come out. Character is also important, integrity. And so those who share our beliefs, those are the first ones we go for and we put forward. Like I, jokingly said yesterday, was Mario Matera's annual fundraiser. The Republicans, who nationally and statewide are not known to be the party of the working men and women. Right? But we are. We represent the middle class, who are members of the middle class, individuals who are in organized labor. I have more elected officials that are part of the organized labor movement and leadership than the Democrats do.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we just spoke about that with Mike Durso on an episode. And, Mike comes from a family of labor. His father's obviously the head of the Long Island Federation of Labor. And we have guys like Kevin McCaffrey, Nick Caracappa, Jim Mazzarella. These guys are all union reps outside.
Joe DeStefano in the assembly.
Yep. There's countless Republicans right now in local government that are members of organized labor.
Yes. And they're fantastic. But they represent the middle class, the hardworking men and women of our communities. So what I've learned in my years first as Brookhaven Town Chair, actually it goes back even further. When I was running campaigns for local office, is that, sometimes, I always go after the membership of the the trades and all that stuff, because sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes the people, leadership in labor groups have to, they respond to a higher authority. So we kind of just speak to it. And we knew, like in 2016 and 2024 and even in 2020, more members of organized labor were supporting Donald Trump than their union leadership. And no disrespect to that. It's just that we know it, and such.
I feel like you were so ahead of the bell curve on that too. Like the Republican and conservative parties across the state nationally, they don't really get behind union leaders. It's not their thing. How much talk do you have with like the state leadership and the national leadership as far as like getting more people like that on board for the Republican Party to recruit more votes?
Well, we do that. I mean, one of the best things we do is by electing them. It's perfect. It's interesting you said that because I have Joe DeStefano, who's an assemblyman from the 3rd District in Brookhaven, and Mario Matera. He just retired as a longtime member of the Plumbers Union. Those two individuals now are part of our caucus that are able to make that connection at the statewide level. So now we're making more gains there because, we don't want anybody to think that there's enough with the mainstream media and the Democrats and Democrat socialists, and everyone wanted to call anybody who doesn't agree with them, Nazis and all that other stuff. So we have to really speak almost one-on-one to these individuals and lead through our actions.
Right. And, I like that you mention everybody's history as, leaders in the community, people on Board of Education, PTA, Little League coaches, right? Guys that are just naturally involved with the community, want to be there to help and serve their neighbors, right? Because it becomes more naturally when they're in office representing these constituents.
Absolutely. And that's the best thing. When you have someone that's genuine and someone who's done the work and sacrificed time from their families or for even their businesses to make their community better as a volunteer, that's the type of person I want. And whether you're an EMT, a volunteer firefighter, the local chamber leader or chamber member, I want to grab you and bring you into that process because you've already demonstrated you have a desire for public service. You're not looking for notoriety. You're not looking for pay. It's not you're doing it for personal reasons. You're doing it for the greater good. Those are our best candidates, and that's why we've been successful. I mean, for the first time in Suffolk County, first time since 1996. What is it, 34 years, 30 years? Or I can't do math right now.
You're close.
Republicans in Suffolk County hold the county executive and a supermajority in the Suffolk County legislature. 6 of our towns are controlled by Republicans. And the majority of our assembly members and 4 out of 5 of our senators are all Republicans. That says something. That means that we're making a connection. Our elected officials, our party is making a connection with the middle class, Suffolk County resident.
Right.
That's awesome. And then to make another sports reference, like scouting, to find these people that are communicating with the community and they're winning the elections. That's amazing. And also, so you're the chairman of the county and of Brookhaven. But how are your interactions? I know we talked about on the state and national level, but town to town, you have so much control of the county on a town basis. How is that working out for you?
Well, here in Suffolk County, it's always been historically a system of towns. The towns are really where the power base of the Republican Party in Suffolk County is. So with that, for a couple of years, we've had people who, have tried to do a top-down type of operation. And me and Brookhaven, we've done a grassroots. It's really from bottom up. And, we were talking about candidate selection. One of the best things, and I got to give credit to, I would love to take credit for every recruit, but the recruits and the elected officials and candidates that we have as a result of a committee member of the Brookhaven or Suffolk County Republican Committee coming to me and saying, take a look at this individual. This is what they're doing in the community. I have a great committee. I have by far the best committee in the state of New York. This past Saturday, we sent out 1,300 people starting our vaunted door-to-door canvassing program. Those are neighbors. These are not people being shipped in from the city or being paid to do this. These are volunteers that have no connection to the party except love of party, love of country, and love of our communities. And they really take it upon themselves to recruit candidates and then carry the message. And that's what's great about it because there's a buy-in from that.
Right.
They believe in the message that you're sending out.
Right. It's a very genuine role. And I feel like the committee members don't get enough credit for the work that they do.
They don't.
No, absolutely. And to be perfectly honest with you, up until maybe 5 years ago when I got more involved with the PBA and our union, I didn't even know what a committee member was. Right. So I think a lot of people out there don't realize the work and dedication that these committee members put in on their own time.
Absolutely. These are individuals that get on the train. They go to work, or they open up their businesses at 6 o'clock in the morning. They work late at night, or they're taking their kids to their to PTAs or their local youth groups. This is America. And they are not given as much credit. They are, as I've always referred to them, the first amongst equals. These are people who truly care about the quality of life in their community, so they're going to do something about it on a volunteer basis. They don't get paid for this. The only notoriety is I make sure I always refer to them as honorable. I also rely upon them to find out what's going on in their community. I can always tell you two times when I know how our governments are doing well. That's when I'm doing door-to-door canvassing for our candidates, and when I do go through the petition process to get candidates on the ballot. These are two long processes. In the petition process, we're doing that in February and March. It's really cold in February and March, rainy and snowy. I mean, for us to be able to do that, for committee people, volunteers to do that on their own, for no reason to go in the cold, that's dedication.
Yeah, it's not the optimal time of year to be walking miles a day.
I'm sure that helps you keep your finger on the pulse, though. What's going on in this community?
They tell me, it's easy. They tell us what's going on in the community. Whenever I have a campaign, if I'm doing door-to-door, when we have a program called Trailblazer, and they can, either on paper or on Trailblazer, they can, say that this person brought up this issue. So we're able to communicate. We'll talk to the committee person, then we'll get the candidate involved with that or the elected official, and then they'll be able to do that. It's a big, we are we're like the fighter. How do you call it? I'm like the wingman for the elected officials. The party is, we protect them. We move forward with them to ensure that they have all the resources that they need on the outside to get elected. And so are our candidates.
I think your messaging and your strength as a party leader, you could talk about the primaries that occurred this year. You were tremendous in those primaries. All your guys won throughout the county.
We won, all of them won big. Well, by north of 60% of the vote. We had primaries in towns and for legislature. And, they're expected, they're unwanted, they are wasteful. But in my case, I have to turn something bad into something good.
Right.
So what we do is that's really priming the pump. I really want to prime the pump and get the things going for the general election. And when you have good candidates who have a good record, you're able to do that. Intra-party squabbles are probably the worst because you really don't know where everything's coming from. It's usually driven either for personal greed or need, or there's an action in the community. And I'm proud that the fact that we were able to marshal all the resources that we needed in the county to win our elections in Huntington, Smithtown, and in the 14th LD with R.J. Brenna.
I think it's important that you let people run for office. That's a part of being in a democracy. You can't just give one person the spot to run if somebody wants to run for it. But then again, your message and your leadership has shown that it's greater than anybody else running against your people.
Yeah, well, number one, I don't remember the last primary we've lost since I was county leader. So one of the things is that, again, we talk about committee members. Yep. The fact that they have enough faith that they will respond to a call to arms and do what needs to be done, not just in a general election for their own communities, but this is for their party because they don't want outsiders. Like, wait a minute, we're in this party. You can come join us. We want you to join us. We're a big tent, probably the biggest tent in any political party, but don't attack us from the outside. And we have a lot of people we see in congressional races, state races, and now we see it in local races where you have outsiders who just think, hey, it's my time, or I have a couple $1 million to spend, or I have to check off on my bucket list, be a member of Congress. So let me drop $4 million on Nick Lalota's head or Andrew Garbarino's head. And it's our job to say, okay, you can take your $4 million. But I have 1,100, 1,300 committee people that are going to be hitting hundreds of thousands of doors trying to make that.
Right.
It's hard
and they can't.
Yeah.
And I think it says something too, where it's not just the wins, but sometimes you see a lot of strength in the losses too. And there's benefits from even a loss. So
no, I don't like those.
But a few years ago,
I hate losing more than I like winning.
A few years ago, Lee Zeldin ran a great race.
Oh yeah.
Right. And there was a trickle down effect from Lee Zeldin's race. And that was quarterbacked right here in Suffolk County. Yes. Where it led to some House wins, right? And some wins down ballot from governor that were very important for the direction of our county, state, and country.
It really was. Lee Zeldin is singly responsible for the Republicans holding the majority in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Imagine that in a country or in a state so blue that it was Republicans in the state of New York that won enough races, I think it was 11 House seats, that kept the House majority. And he was directly responsible for that. He laid the groundwork for that. He lost by a handful of votes, and we thought we had this. He did a lot of work. He built up more coalitions than we've ever did. Again, here's where a primary really hurt us. We had a primary in June that needed to siphon off about $6 million from Lee Zeldin's gubernatorial campaign. Imagine if he had that $6 million in the general election.
Right.
Those little things is what may have cost him those handful of votes that way as we move forward. And also he needed to protect his flank. And that's something when he should have been attacking Hochul, he unfortunately had to, as the front runner, had to be defending himself. And he did it admirably, by the way. He won, I think, that primary by like almost 60% of the vote, but it was costly in terms of money. Fortunately, though, he's so energetic that despite the fact that our committee people were tired from June, they came right back out.
Right.
In August, started going door to door for him and the entire slate of the congressional and the state slate.
Yeah, and that's because he is a genuine guy. And the things that he's out there campaigning on, right, what his thoughts and feelings and positions are, those are his own. It's not like he's getting the direction from the party, right? Those are his feelings. The party's just putting him in a place to succeed and help the down ballot candidates at the same time.
Absolutely. And that's what leaders do.
Right.
That's what we see with Ed Romaine when he won in 2023, the first Republican county executive in 20 years. There's a down ballot impact of the head of our ticket. And he was important to do that. In 2021, a sleeper one was Ray Tierney. There was something turning in the electorate. There was something turning in the demographics. We saw that. We picked it up in our door-to-door canvassing IDs, and we were able to maximize that despite the fact that Ray Tierney.
That was a very impressive win. Ray Tierney win.
Yeah. That was a quiet one. That was like everyone. You in my game, when you get the other campaign to switch up, you're in the ballgame. Now they know that we're either on their heels or we're getting our nose into clear wind. And that's what happened in about the second week of October of 2021.
Yeah, I was going to say the last 2 weeks, it really kind of like the campaigns, the city campaign they were getting nervous, very nervous about Tierney.
Oh yeah, they were. And what's funny is that we saw it along though. We tracked it on a weekly basis. And then we saw that, again, Tierney in 21 had coattails.
Right.
We saw that Dominic Thorne from the 7th District, he's the one who took back the Republican seat that we haven't held since 1972. We saw Dominic's numbers were piling up. Now, Dominic busts his butt.
He's a hard worker. He's a great guy.
One of the few times I'll agree with Newsday is that he knows every crack on every sidewalk. That's how much he's embedded in the community. Again, another EMT and such who's volunteers in the community. And so we saw that coming. And then we saw it coming from in other races. And we said, okay, let me find a couple of dollars. Let me move a couple of people from safe races and move them into those areas. And we did it early enough that we were able to maximize everything.
Again, that's impressive as you, as the general, is finding these candidates and look at a guy like Ray Tierney, within like 2 or 3 months of him being the district attorney, Gilgo was basically solved.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he kept it quiet. That's
impressive too.
We also figured out that Ray is one tenacious son of a bitch, I will tell you. And he is the ultimate professional. And what I didn't realize is that he has an ability. He's like almost grounded in building coalitions. What he did community outreach as a prosecutor. You got to go into the communities, get confidential informants and stuff like that.
Right. You need help from the communities.
So I didn't realize, he told me how he did this. And then I saw it in real practicality. I saw him meeting with the Hispanic pastors. I saw him meeting with African-American communities and groups, different coalitions. And all of a sudden I saw our numbers with blacks go up. I saw our numbers of Hispanic Americans go up. And that's what really propelled it. So it's fantastic how that started our ball rolling in doing our shared values, like the Hispanic community. I'm like the first Hispanic Brookhaven town chairman and Suffolk County chairman.
Yeah, county chairman for the state.
Yeah. Right. And Mike Torres, who's my dear friend. He's my friend first before he's my political ally. He's the Conservative Party chairman. Here we're 2 Hispanics, right? And we're leading the 2 largest and most influential political parties in the state of New York. We're both Hispanic. And what we've done is we've captured that because we know that our communities share our values, faith, family. They're some of the best entrepreneurs you will find. And we've been doing that with all coalitions.
Right. And a real testament to your scouting ability for these candidates too is Ray Tierney never previously held elected office. He was a prosecutor. He's a law enforcement guy. He wants to go out there, put the bad guys in jail. Mm-hmm. And you were able to scout out that talent from a non-elected position?
Well, Ray was brought to me by a number of committee people and people I trust. And we had a very honest conversation about his candidacy. And I wanted a professional because I've been in politics, professional politics and around politics for about 30, 35 years. And I mean, before that, I used to cover politics as a newspaper reporter and editor. So I've been around it. My family grew up in it. My father was a committeeman, and I was a committeeman at the age of 18, but he was in an executive committee in Brookhaven. And the entire time, there were political DAs, Republicans and Democrats. They politicized the prosecutor's office. And one way that I thought we could switch it is by bringing a true professional. Now, you take a 30-year state and federal prosecutor who's put away gang members, murderers, MS-13 individuals, briefed the president during his visit here in Brentwood in 2017 during the MS-13 gang violence problem we had. That's what we first came up with. Let's do a professional instead of a politician. And it worked. And now there's no better debater. I'm going to tell you, you never want to get into a debate. And I think people are seeing that now as they see him prosecute the Gilgo case himself, is that there is no better person in the courtroom and there is no better individual in a debate table than Ray Tierney.
Yeah, he's prosecuting that Gilgo case himself. And he just had a landmark decision that's going to help that case and put the bad guy away in jail. And that was involving the DNA evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He put all his chips in the middle of the table. And he took it upon himself to make sure it got done. And that's why our streets are safer.
Yeah.
Partnerships with the police now, partnerships with every level of law enforcement. There's no divisions. I mean, you guys maybe are too young enough to remember when the district attorney was fighting with the police commissioner. Who's going to, you can arrest somebody,
right.
He's never going to go to jail.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it was and they're all fighting for a headline.
It's not good for the citizens.
It's not good for the citizens at all, And so now the fact that you have professionals in the district attorney's office who doesn't care about the media, cares about one thing, keeping us safe, keeping the people safe. And now we have, under Ed Romaine, we have Kevin Catalina, our police commissioner, that cares about the same thing. Is grounded in public safety, first in New York, then in the sheriff's department, knows Suffolk County. These two, along with the sheriff and all our other agencies, they're working in unison. And now we have partnerships instead of, turf battles.
Right. It's more effective for everybody that lives here in Suffolk County. It's great. So one of the things I want to point out is we were just talking about Dominic Thorne, and you had mentioned that one of the things you'll agree with Newsday on is how Dominic Thorne knows every crack in the sidewalk, right? Yes. He knows his community and he knows how to serve it.
The other thing I'll agree with Newsday on was when they referred to Ed Romaine as the most effective chief executive on Long Island.
There you go.
I'll give them that.
So they get two.
Two.
So recently, following the Charlie Kirk assassination, Newsday put out a cartoon that in most people's eyes was very distasteful and really not appropriate for
it was disgraceful.
What was going on.
It was vile.
Yeah.
It was wrong.
And the cartoon portrayed a Turning Point USA tent with a chair under it, where Charlie Kirk would typically set up for his debates, open live debates, which is what part of what America is founded on.
It is,
and it portrayed a bullet hole through the chair and through the back of the tent where Charlie Kirk would typically sit. And you called Newsday out on this as being a disgraceful piece. So what kind of transpired with that?
Well, what transpired is that it happened to be on Saturday, on the 13th. The cartoon in question was part of their political roundup that they printed. And I want to be very specific here because I don't want anyone to try and get out of it and explain it away. It was on page A16 of the editorial pages. It was a part of a political roundup of cartoons. It was brought to my attention as we were getting those 1,200 people, 1,300 committee people out in the streets. And then I was taking care of some campaign work, but this was still nagging at me in the background. So, I went about my business, but I kept going back to it. And I then said, I was offended. I'm like, how could they publish this? I mean, is it real? Am I reading it too much? Am I being too sensitive or too partisan in my position? So I reached out to friends of mine that were Democrats, that were moderates, and more moderate than me. And I said, hey, tell me what you think about this. And they all like universally shook their head. This is not good. At that point, I knew I needed to say something on behalf of the Republican committee. So I began drafting a statement and calling out Newsday. And I asked for three very specific things. first and foremost, take down that vile depiction, that cartoon. There's no place in this world for that type of stuff. This is a political assassination against someone who was engaging with the founding fathers expected everything to do.
Right, exactly.
Public, respectful discourse, And, he would bring the people that disagreed with him vehemently up to the line first.
Yes.
Never called them names. He just used the facts. When they agreed to disagree, he would know them. When he provided clarity, he acknowledged it. When they provided him a little bit of clarity, he acknowledged it. He was a happy warrior of the conservative cause and the founding fathers of free speech. So when I saw this, it just kept bothering me. I said, number one, you got to take it down. Number two, you have to apologize to the Kirk family. Apologize to your readers because this is wrong. Own it. And number three, terminate the contract. So when we finally got everything done, my headquarters team did a great job in getting this out. We hit send on the button and it went like wildfire. Within 3 minutes of my statement hitting the inboxes of not only thousands of committee people, thousands of volunteers, thousands of subscribers to our email lists and others, and the press, because I sent it to every press agency we have. We also put it up on our social media. And within 3 minutes, Newsday's texting me. You're going too far. You're doing this. And I'm like, no, we're not. This is bad judgment. This is people should cancel their subscriptions if they don't agree with this type of activity you're doing. This is a consumer issue. Right. If they're a consumer, they should do that. I don't think people want to do businesses with type of businesses that would kind of spew this hate and add to it. And I also wanted to send a message to every newsroom in America that political violence cannot be trivialized. It can't be normalized in any way. We got to call it what it is. Sorry, I banged the table. We got to call it what it is. I'm very passionate about this. And we did. So they said to me that they were going to issue a clarification. And my response to them was, well, if you're issuing clarification, it never should have been printed in the first place. So overnight, quietly, the cartoon was eliminated from the digital platforms. Then, less than 19 hours later, in the print edition, there was a clarification for whatever it is. I certainly don't think it went for far enough. In fact, I stated it didn't. And then less than 19 hours later, Newsday issued an apology to the Kirk family, took it down, tried to explain their positions on it, whether you want to agree with them or not agree with them. And then, I acknowledged that they did the right thing. They owned it. They apologized. They took it down. I think they're going to question whether or not, I don't know the status of their contract. And then what I said to consumers and what I said is that I accept their apology. That's what society is about. Right. I said, but consumers, unlike Democrats, I'm not going to mandate you to take a vaccine. I'm not going to mandate you to wear a mask. I'm not going to mandate you to do, to have only a 16-ounce Coke as opposed to anything else, or tell you how much caffeine you're allowed to have. I'm not into mandates. Consumers can make their own decisions. Right. They want to do business, and with that group, that's fine. That's your choice. It's your choice.
And we've seen some of the consequences of some people coming out and making statements about the Charlie Kirk incident, like the Jimmy Kimmel show, where they suspended his show.
I think it was more for his ratings than he sucked, but that's.
I think that all plays a part of it. You've seen several people lose their jobs. I think that's going on the internet right now. As you're seeing a lot of that in the news, so many people. Teachers,
but what's crazy, it's that you think there was maybe as people on the woke left. These are teachers, surgeons. Yeah. They're I guess when you let people speak, you see what they're really about. And I credit those organizations and those entities that said, you don't represent the best of us. You don't represent what our values. So we don't want you in a classroom. We don't want you in our medical facilities. We don't want you treating our patients. We don't want you part of our organization and representing us. That's not part of it. I know that it gets a lot of flame and a lot of publicity when people do that. But honestly, it's only about 10%. Right. Or if not less.
The squeaky wheel.
It's a squeaky wheel. And I'm glad that those entities are calling them out on it. And they don't want to share those values. They don't share those values, but they shouldn't be in the classroom. They shouldn't be doing the businesses. Those businesses have to make a choice on their own. It's not like we're calling on them to be fired. You never heard a conservative voice or Republican voice saying that these individuals be fired. Those individuals are being fired by the business entities because they have to make a business decision. I mean, like the Florida Panthers firing this young man from from their PR department who was celebrating on their social media platform Charlie Kirk's political assassination. Number one, how do you celebrate the murder of anyone?
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, it's unbelievable. So I'm glad that the society is finally. I would like to say that I think they've always been awoken to it, but I think what they're saying now is they're being a lot more verbal about it. They're being vocal about it.
Right. And I think what we want to make clear, too, is what you asked of Newsday is a lot different than what the left's cancel culture has been over the last 5 to 10 years, right? Because the left's cancel culture has been literally telling people, stop buying this, these subscriptions, or stop going to this person's movies, get this person off the air. Like, they're literally trying to cancel people. You were just looking for an apology. Exactly. And you accepted the apology.
I did. But here's the thing. The woke were canceling people because you disagreed with their philosophy.
Right.
I disagreed with your idea, so we have to try and burn down your business or burn down your career. Or we have to go into our social media feeds for when you were 12 years old or 16 years old and try and take you out that way. That's not what this is about.
Right.
If businesses on their own make a decision that this is the type of people we don't want to represent us, if you're not doing a good job or that's one reason to get fired. And if you don't represent the best qualities of your company, you're going to get fired too. Another sports analogy. Every contract's got a clause in there about like, I don't know, decency clause, but you can't say stupid things.
Right.
You can't embarrass the organization.
Right. You're representative of the organization.
It's a character clause.
Yeah.
And these athletes, they sign it. It's in the same document that gives them $50 million a year to throw a football. Mm-hmm. So they've signed on to it. So they understand what they're signing on to and that they represent an organization.
Right.
That has.
I find it interesting, too, that you pointed out that there were teachers celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, right?
Professors?
Right. These are people that are molding our youth, and they had a big influence on what Charlie Kirk was actually doing.
Yes.
Because there was a reason he was going from university to university, speaking to the youth of America and explaining to them that college really should be teaching you how to think, how to reason, how to come up with your own opinions, not what to think, right? And I think that pointing out that teachers were celebrating Charlie Kirk's death is really just another validation of what Charlie Kirk was actually out there trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like trying to cheer the assassination of John F. Kennedy,
right?
Or Bobby Kennedy, or the attack or the attempted assassination on not just President Trump twice, but Ronald Reagan. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, you got to have decency. There is it's a morals clause. You have to. There's some ethics and morals here, and you have to stop it. And that's one of the things that if there was one good thing that came out of COVID is that parents saw what was finally being taught in their classrooms. They came out from behind the curtain, and all of a sudden on these Zooms and all this stuff, and during the lockdown, they were like peeking in and listening and like. Why are you teaching why are we listening? Why are we learning math and social studies? Why are we learning about transgender and all this other stuff?
Right. I think the students too, those are the future voters of this country.
Exactly.
The kids that were in high school and college that didn't get the opportunities that we got over the years, like going to prom, graduation, that was all taken away from them. And I think that those students are going to become more Republican and conservative from what happened during COVID.
Absolutely. I always joke around, as a political leader, I said, you know what, the Democrats have their youth guys. We still try and get them. We have a very active Suffolk County Young Republicans. We have a number of chapters within our towns and such. And they do a good job in recruiting. We have active college Republicans, especially on Stony Brook. And but I always jokingly said that Democrats maybe have the students early, but once they get that first paycheck, they got to pay their first taxes. They got to make that mortgage or a rental payment. They become mine. They all of a sudden find Republican headquarters and say, hey, how can I help lower all these costs?
Right. Now, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about here with the state, the direction of the state is Kathy Hochul's recent endorsement of Soham Mamdani in New York City. Now, being a county chairman, town chairman, how involved do you get in what's happening in the city right now?
Well, we watch what's happening in the city. Right. We watch what happens what our opponents do to themselves. And when they shoot themselves in the foot, we let them have it. Let them do it. When they want to continue to hurt themselves politically, you let them have it. We call them out. We warned them. I've been warning them about Mondami since he was in the primary and he was surging in the primary. But I feel horrible for the people who own businesses in New York, who live in New York, who want to visit New York, who have investments in New York, because it's hands down that Mondami, this communist who believes in defund the police, who wants to take away your right to own your own home and home ownership, wants to give free buses and free groceries to everybody. But it's not free because that means someone's paying for it.
Right.
That means we're paying for it. Wants to raise taxes on everybody so they can give free stuff out. Wants to really bring a communist socialist agenda to New York City. They vote for that. They deserve it. But I'm certainly going to contrast that over the Republican philosophies and actions and policies that make Suffolk County and Long Island safer, more secure, and more affordable. And I'll put up an Ed Romaine and a Bruce Blakeman against a Mondani any day of the week.
Yeah.
And in the debate.
I think history has proven throughout time that socialism and communism does not work.
Yeah.
It's crazy that they keep doubling back down to that.
Exactly.
It's already a failed experiment.
Yeah.
And you know better than anybody else, in every political poll right now, the top two issues, and they're interchangeable, is public safety and cost of living.
Yes.
Right? So when you're out there in New York City talking about free this, free that, free everything, it sounds like it's going to help cost of living, right? I'm getting all this stuff for free, but somebody's still paying for it. So the people that are actually out there working and paying the taxes are going to see a bigger chunk of their income getting taken out to be given to the people that are not working and pulling their own weight.
Absolutely. And that's why I said, like, the state Democrats, Hochul and the Democrats up in Albany, they use Long Island as an ATM to fund their failed policies for New York City and the state of New York. We're going to try and stop that. I honestly believe, and it is an effort that we've been trying to do, that I think we need to look at Long Island becoming the 51st state. I want to go to President Trump and say, hey, listen, forget about Canada, right? I got great beaches. I got the Hamptons. We have everything great here on Long Island. We have great people. We could probably deliver two U.S. senators for you and a Republican governor. But more importantly, it's becoming more and more difficult for the middle class taxpayer to get saddled with the additional regulations, the additional costs, the threat of their own public personal safety that the Democrats in Albany have been doing. And you know what? Everyone's complicit in that. If you're quiet, like Schumer and the speaker, the minority leader of the House, Jeffries, is being quiet about Mondani, they are complicit in it. Local Democrats who have said nothing about it, they're complicit in it. If you want to say something, stand up. And that's what's important. But you know what? The Democrats are kind of like tied up in knots. They have a communist to endorse, or they have a failed, disgraced governor who had to resign under sexual harassment charges, who weaponized COVID and killed a bunch of seniors in the nursing homes. I mean, what choices do the people of the Democrats in the city of New York have, or the Democrats have in the state of New York? Well, these are the two choices.
Right. I like how you said that, to speak up. And I know we had Ed Romaine on recently, and he was talking about, especially because we're talking about taxes and the corporations that are going to want to leave New York City because the taxes are going to become overwhelming. And he offered them opportunity to move out here to Suffolk County. I think that's a great response to what's going on in the city.
Yeah.
Best thing to do is that we're going to move the economy over here, move your investments into Suffolk County, move your job creation into Suffolk County. We will be great partners. Ed Romaine would be great partners with you. We're safer here than we are in other regions of the state. It's a perfect opportunity for a business. And it used to be, or you remember, that you never wanted the transportation, the location was important. Now in the 21st century, with the advent of the internet and wireless, your office and your center of business can be anywhere.
Well, working from home has become so popular now. It's crazy. Like, I have a lot of friends now where I feel like I'm working 60 hours a week, having to actually be somewhere, and they're making a good living working from home.
Yeah, but I think if you're in government, you should be working in the office. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, maybe it's my own personal thing. I think that you're more productive in a collaborative setting. I know I'm better when I'm in a collaborative setting. I get better ideas because I always tell people, if I'm the smartest guy in your room, get a new room. It's the people around me that are really truly make us all look good. And the other thing is there's an accountability to taxpayers. That's why I'm glad that one of the first things that Ray Tierney did in 2022, he brought all the prosecutors back into the office. They were all home.
Right.
How do you How do you put away bad guys from your couch? I mean, it just doesn't work. Ed Romaine did the same thing in 2024 as a county executive, brought everybody home. The legislature did that as well. Republicans want their public servants to be there on site, to be able to directly be available and accountable to their constituents, to the taxpayers. That's what's important.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about working in an office setting where you're around teammates, you could talk about ideas, think about new approaches going forward, right? It's not just going to be, talking through emails once in a while where it's, the standard operating procedure of whatever you're already doing. There's no way to communicate and think, have forward thinking about new approaches to new problems.
Exactly. And listen, if a private business wants to do that and that works for them, that's all be it. Not for me to judge. As long as it's predictable. Productive for them. But in terms of public service, I think you need to be on site. And like I said, the collaboration, I think, is better in the end for the taxpayers.
Yeah,
and the delivering of service.
I agree. And one of the other things I like about Ed Romaine offering these city businesses to come out here to Suffolk County is it would also keep families together.
Yes.
Because these people that would be leaving New York City to come to Suffolk County, at least they're still staying local. They're here. They're not relocating to Florida, breaking up families, right? Where you're saying goodbye to your brothers, sisters, cousins, parents, right? Keep the families together. Right. Exactly. Well,
New York has had one of the biggest exodus over the last couple of years since COVID really started.
New York and California.
Do you expect a big migration out to Long Island again with this going on?
Listen, that's fine. But what I tell these voters that have come out there is that you ran away from bad policies.
Right.
Don't expect those bad policies out here, and don't try and change our bad policies.
Right.
Change our policies into your bad policies that you ran away from.
Right. You're running away from a failed experiment. You're running away for something that was not good for you and your family. Right. And I think back to the presidential election where people were saying in Arizona, a swing state, don't California my Arizona.
Exactly.
Right.
And when we see that, I think I saw a stat where Avis, or one of the big trucking companies, the moving companies, said that there were more one-way. They had to put restrictions because people were doing one-way trips from California to Texas. So how are they going to get their trucks back? Their rental trucks back and forth. So,
you're not taking any furniture on the way back to California.
Those things have to deadhead back to the places of origin. So
right. So I found it interesting that you mentioned Long Island as a 51st state because every once in a while you hear people talk about that, and it's kind of like with half a smile, half joking, but there is a half serious side to it too.
I think there is. And I know I don't know the particulars of it, but I know the state legislature plays a major role in it. And, it's something that I think that we have to honestly take a look at. I know that I've spoken to my partner and my friend, Mike Torres, about it in the Conservative Party. And I know he's spoken to some people in his party. I've spoken to Joe Cairo, my counterpart and a great leader in Nassau County for the Republican Party. And I've spoken to a couple of elected officials, and, we've been talking now. The issue is now let's take it to the electorate. Let's talk to, as we're doing door to door. Tell my committee people. Tell me what your PTAs, your chambers, your civic groups, your school board members, and your firehouses and ambulance houses are talking about. How do they feel about that? That's how we can try and build up the grassroots. Because let me just go back to the cartoon for a minute. I really want to thank the committee people of Suffolk County Republican Party, our volunteers, everyone and all our supporters that was within the reach of our social media and our email blast. Because, I would love to say it was me who did it, but it wasn't. It was their reaction, their passion of calling out what was
power
wrong.
In numbers.
It was power in numbers. And that's another grassroots example of creating change. And they should be credited for it because they rose in one voice. Like we go back to Charlie Kirk for a minute. This guy, this assassin, thought he was going to snuff out a voice. Instead, what he did is that he, in its place, put forward millions of new voices that are all singing from the same tune because that's what we believe in. And last night we were in front of Mario Matera's office, and just to go back between a little bit of a difference between Republicans and, far left Democrats and socialists. A little bit more than a week ago, Charlie Kirk was taken from us and there weren't rioting in the streets.
Right.
Police officers weren't being assaulted in protecting the streets. Police departments weren't being attacked. Places were not being looted. What did we do? Neighbors and families gathered together. Communities came together. We held vigils and we filled our houses of worship.
Yeah.
That's the America I represent. That's the America we all want. And that was happening in different places, all over the country, and even all over the world. Can you imagine in liberal London, 1 million Londoners, marching in a vigil for Charlie Kirk?
That's amazing.
That's a testament that it is amazing. It's a testament that you call out what's wrong and then you try to build on it.
Yep. Yeah, I took notice to all those candlelight vigils and collective prayers as well. And especially as police officers, you can't help but to appreciate that sort of reaction to a tragedy versus what we've seen over the past decade or two, following, say, the George Floyd incident or, Michael Brown incident in Missouri. So from our standpoint, it really was incredible to see that stark contrast.
It really is. And
as a voter, which do you want to be a part of? Do you want to be a part of breaking and looting, or do you want to be a part of an optimistic response?
Well, and a force of change.
Right.
A force of community, a force of change. And that's what's fantastic about what Real Americans. And I think what's happening is that, the Trump administration, COVID, the 2024 election has exposed a lot of these, tactics used by the government, by big corporations to silence people and to basically change the narrative. They wanted their chosen elected leaders to be in power so they can ignore more greed. If you can wrap your hands around that for a moment. But the American people said no. American people said no. I mean, we saw Donald Trump sweep every swing state, won the Electoral College, won the popular vote. If that's not a mandate, then someone else show me a mandate.
Yeah, and I found it interesting too that after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the Turning Point USA got requests for like 32,000 new chapters
I think
throughout
it's
the
up to
country.
50,000.
Yeah, so it's probably more since I first read about it a few days ago.
Yeah. It's amazing, but that's great though. But here's the thing: we got to keep the momentum going.
Right.
We're in the first week of that, and my heart goes out, and my prayers continue to Erica Kirk and her 2 children, and everyone who worked associated with Turning Point USA and that movement, because it really was the best thing you could do. Could you imagine? It's the best part of America. It's the Lincoln debates that started on stumps and whatnot. We have a debate. We share ideas, and then from that debate, sometimes we get some type of not only clarification but consensus to move forward. That's what the whole founders saw for us to do. If you remember, we all remember, but there was no freedom of religion, freedom of speech when we were a colony. We were 13 colonies of the United Kingdom, and now we are. Now we're, they're going through their own speech problem. Where they're arresting people for what they say on social media. I mean, there's something shouldn't be on social media, to incite violence, but you can't. Just because you don't agree with me, you can't cancel me.
Right. Inciting violence is different than just stating an opinion that you might not agree with, right? And that's the whole thing with, like, say, the Jimmy Kimmel show getting suspended, right? He wasn't arrested. His show was suspended because, certain people didn't agree with what he was saying or putting out there to the public. But he's not arrested. No. He had his freedom of speech. He's not locked up somewhere for what he said.
Exactly. And if I dare anybody to ask or point out to us, what Republican, what conservative, what Make America Great supporter called for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired? No one did.
Right.
No one did. This was a business decision made by the affiliates. Those are, ABC is a network. So they have a bunch of affiliates that carry their programming. There was a group of affiliates that said, no, we don't want this programming.
Right.
We got to change this. And we're going to put something else in its place. And ABC was not listening. Finally, they listened, and then they had to take action.
Right.
Freedom of speech is the First Amendment for a reason. It's the most important thing that we really stand on in this country. And it doesn't save you from other consequences in your personal and professional life. But like you said, it should be kept that you can't be arrested for your thoughts and your
it's
voice
the foundation,
some kind of violence.
It's the foundation of the rest of the Bill of Rights.
Actually, listen, that's why it's number one.
Right.
You have a right to be stupid.
Right.
You don't have a right to be violent.
Right. Correct. So looking forward, obviously there's a lot of upcoming county elections, right, this November. There's also an upcoming state election next November, right? So what what are you currently most focused on? What are you looking forward to for the future? What's kind of, in the crosshairs for you
right now? First and foremost, keep Ray Tierney as our district attorney. I think we're pretty good on that issue. Number 2 is maintaining our supermajority in the Suffolk County legislature. And, I'm not happy with a dozen. I'm a guy that wants a baker's dozen plus. So what we're doing is we're pressing a number of Democratic races. I think that we mentioned Dominic Thorne doing a fantastic. He's seeking his 3rd reelection. He was first elected in 2021 and took out a Democrat. Stephanie Bontempi in the 18th district. That is like a traditional 25-year Democrat district. She has worked that district and has won it in 21 first, then in 23. We expect her to do very well up there. Staying in Huntington, we have a Democrat that's a freshman that is anti-police, anti-middle class. She represents the woke Democrat socialist agenda where, she's getting her monies from these NGOs and such. So what we're going to do is we brought in Chad Lubinacci, former state assemblyman, former supervisor in Huntington, but more importantly, a professor in college. He helps shapes the minds of these individuals, and he does it properly. He teaches them the core curriculum and such. He's got great outreach. Already hit 7,000 doors that we were moving forward. Then as we go farther east, Catherine Stark. She was elected in 2023. She's facing her first reelection. She's running against another socialist woke individual that they want to toss out of Southold. So we're going to, tell the truth about his philosophies and what he wants to do about public safety. He's already pierced the cap. So he's already saddled the people of Southold with millions and millions of dollars in higher taxes. We're not going to let that happen when Catherine Stark's going to be able to champion that issue. And then we have, we have Laura Endress in the 5th district against Steve Engelbright. We've already beaten Steve Engelbright once. Laura Endress is a lawyer. She's embedded in the community. She knows public service. So she's got that blend of public service and private enterprise. She's raised a significant amount of money. Another one who's hit thousands of doors in the last 6 months and is taking her cause right to it. She's very articulate. And like I said, we beat him. We beat Engelbright once. We're going to beat him again because we're going to tell the truth about his record and what he has done in Albany on cashless bail. Basically, coddling criminals, handcuffing cops and judges and prosecutors so that, these people can do repeated crimes against our citizenry, and we're going to stop that. And then one of the sleeper ones I wanted to talk to you about is Guy Leggio in the 9th district. This is a guy who has been involved in the fire services. He is involved, so it's in Bay Shore, Central Islip, Brentwood, and so on. He's been involved in the fire services there. He's been on the school board. He single-handedly, without little public money, helped to build a gymnasium for wrestlers in East Islip schools. Imagine that.
He built it himself, didn't he?
Yeah, he did it himself. He organized everything. He's a bricklayer by trade. So when one thing that you asked me about a political chairman, so they put Guy Leggio on my radar. Had a couple of conversations with him. We give him a nomination and such. Go to his first fundraiser. When I go to a fundraiser, and typically there's a circuit that goes to fundraisers, and I see a bunch of the same people.
Right, a lot of same faces all the time.
Same faces. Yeah. That's good. When I walk in a room and I don't know 80% of the people, I know we have something special. And we've done that several times with both Laura Endress, with Guy Leggio, and Chad Lubinacci. Even Chad, who's been involved in the political process, there's more people he's bringing in here. These are people that demonstrate energy, and they're going even above and beyond. They're actually digging in their pockets and handing over a couple of dollars so they can get his message out.
Okay. So after this election cycle, and we have the upcoming governor's races, right, statewide, we were all just recently at your Lobster Fest, one of the biggest parties of the year, right? That's a who's who of Suffolk County at your Lobster Fest. Elise Stefanik stepped by too, right? So how's your relationship been with Elise Stefanik, and what are you kind of looking forward to for some of those statewide races next year?
Well, first and foremost, you can't win in 26 until you win in 25. So for us to be successful at the statewide level in 26, Republicans need to keep control at a supermajority of the legislature. We need to elect Ray Tierney and down the ballot. Bruce Blakeman needs to win in Nassau County. First and foremost, he needs to get his reelection involved as county executive because you want Long Island to be what it is. We're at the tip of the spear. We're the engine of the Republican Party for the state of New York. So you want that continuation of Republican governance, so you can demonstrate the differences between Democrats and Republicans and how they govern in their policies. So that's what we need to do first. After that, I think we have two great candidates. I think Bruce Blakeman has demonstrated his ability to not only be articulate, his policies have been front right. So have Elise Stefanik. I think we're going to shake that all out. But ultimately, I think the president's going to weigh in on that and decide what happens in that. He's the leader of the party nationally, and he loves New York. He's still
he's a New York guy.
He's a New York guy. Even though the fact that they try to prosecute him like several times for no reasons. But I think it's going to be interesting. But I will tell you, if you want to be statewide, you want to be successful or be competitive statewide, you better make sure that you got New York locked up. Long Island locked up. Right. Unless we're locked up, we have no ability to go anywhere. And that was important for Lee Zeldin.
Right. I was just going to say, much like the Lee Zeldin race, how he helped down ballot, the people that are local can help up ballot as well.
Exactly. We got to remember in 2022, Republicans didn't control the county executive's office in Suffolk County. So despite that, we still gave Lee Zeldin 100,000 vote plurality almost, and almost a 60% win here in Suffolk County. So can you imagine, now with, at this point, 2 years of putting before voters the differences between a Democrat county executive and a Republican county executive, how we do things to keep ourselves affordable, how we do things in cleaning up the messes that were left for us. I know that Ed Romaine's dealing with a bunch of legal cases that were just kicked down the road so that it could be left for the next guy. And Ed Romaine's not like that. He's like, I'm going to fix this problem. I'll fix it now. There's no sense in leaving it lingering around for the next person because it's eventually going to come due. And he did that for 11 years as the Brookhaven town supervisor, and he's doing it now as county executive.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about Ed Romaine too is, he's facing certain issues right now that he's working on, but he's looking for long-term solutions to these problems too. Right? He's not looking to hand off some issues to the next administration, whoever that ends up being, when it ends up being.
If you look at it, it was a decision made by the former Democrat, Steve Ballone. Everything seemed to end or needed to be taken up in 2024. Right. That's what he did. His lawsuits against the county were kicked to 2024. Every bargaining group had to have their contracts, close in 2023. So it had to be done by the next county executive. There was no long-term planning. And that's the one thing about Ed Romaine and Republicans in general. It's not something you just call out a problem. We will offer a solution. You may agree with the solution, may not agree. You may agree with the solution, but perhaps maybe you can help the solution get better. That's fine. We'll do that. But it's going to be solution based. It's not just about calling names and getting a 30-second soundbite and then forgetting about it and going to the next one like Chuck Schumer does.
And the county would be better off for it.
Exactly. The taxpayers are better off for it. The middle class is better off for it. The 8,000 employees or 10,000 employees that the county has are better for it because now they're given the real resources to do what needs to be done. Perfect example is that, geography's a lot, what's the closest office in the old administration, the closest office to the to the county executive was the press office. That's all I cared about. What's the most important office important to Ed Romaine? It's the budget office. It's the operations office. That's what it is. He's big on the fundamental core essentials of government. And now in his position, he's able to place the resources where it's needed. We've heard that we never want to have a situation where people call 911 and they have to wait on a call waiting or something like that. So we put more resources into 911. After the Valva case, we want to put more resources, good resources, into child protective services, root out what was wrong, put in new improvements, and they've been doing that. So it's all about apportioning of resources too. You don't have to raise spending to do it. Just move the money where it needs to go. Let's do a little bit less patronage and a little bit less press, and maybe put it to the employees that answer the emergency phone calls or go to the homes to stop the next Valva case.
Right. And we saw that directly here in the police department too. When Ed Romaine was campaigning, he promised to fill detective vacancies, right? And when he filled those detective vacancies, he promoted a lot of detectives. He hired new recruits to backfill those police officers that were just promoted to detective. So we've benefited from his policies directly in the police department for public safety.
So, and who else benefited from that, right?
The
You guys benefited from being able to do your jobs properly, right?
The constituents are now safer.
The taxpayers, the citizens are safer. Why? Because now they have detectives that can investigate crimes, work with every level, work with the police officers, work with the district attorney's office. They can investigate these crimes, right? And what else now happens? Now we have more cops on the street, protecting our street corners, protecting our main streets, protecting our communities and such. That's the trickle-down effect that happens.
Right.
Instead of just keeping vacant positions so you can say, I'm trying to control spending and such, right? If it's budgeted, then utilize it properly. If you're not going to utilize it, then defund it.
It's obviously important to the constituents because it's been one of the number one topics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, first responsibility of government, of any government, is the protection of its citizenry. If you fail on that, you failed in everything.
Yep.
And dare I say, you know, except for the good, hardworking attitude and ethic of the police officers, they've done that. But, you know, they also need the resources, they need the leadership. And I think that finally Ed Romaine and the Republican legislature has provided them that.
Yeah, and I know Ed and his administration has been working very hard. You had mentioned all of the union contracts in the county were left undone from when Ed took over. We settled ours. The corrections officers recently settled theirs. We came to good deals that through the negotiation process, right? It wasn't shoved down anybody's throat through an arbitrator. It was something that was fair to the taxpayers, fair to the working men and women of the county. And I know he's working on some of the other union contracts right now. Hopefully, everybody who's out there working for Suffolk County to keep us safe, keep Suffolk County moving, ends up with those fair compensation packages.
Absolutely. And the best thing about it is that Ed Romaine for 11 years served as a Brookhaven town supervisor.
Right.
And I've always said that whatever challenge needs to be met, Ed Romaine met it, had already faced it and overcame it as a Brookhaven town supervisor. Brookhaven is huge, the biggest county, biggest town in the state of New York geographically. It's got 500,000 people. It's a county in and of itself. And he was able to run that and get bond rating increases and provide services at an affordable cost and controlling taxes, and was able to protect the taxpayers at the same time providing the people of the government to provide the services, the resources they need.
Right.
And he's done that in the county.
Yeah, no, Ed's been great. We always talk about open lines of communication. We've had open line of communication with him and his administration. It's been great.
And what's good is that now you have, and I mean, there's no better team, I got to tell you, than Ed Romaine and Ray Tierney. I mean, you see those two guys are like hand in glove. No one cares about a soundbite. No one cares about the media exposure. What they care about is results.
Yes.
And that's first and foremost. The first thing that these two individuals go, including our Republican legislators, the first thing they do when they walk into their office or stand behind a dais or convene a meeting is that where do we get to serve these solutions to make this better? Will we leave this county better than it was? I don't want, none of these individuals want to leave their departments whenever it's time for them to go and to move on to other endeavors, to the next stage of their lives, that it wasn't better than it's got to be better than what they assumed, because what they assumed was a bag of crap. Both in the DA's office, the county executive's office, and certainly in the legislature. I can tell you, I mean, it was just a bag of crap.
And I think that's a great outlook for anybody who's working in any sort of role, right? Because we actually talk about here in the PBA, every PBA president and PBA administration wants to leave the union in better, in a better position than when they took it over, right? And same thing with the county, right? It's a natural progression. If you're taking pride in your job and you're doing it the right way, that should be your ultimate goal.
Absolutely. It's like parents.
Yeah,
we want
absolutely.
our kids to have a better life than we did.
Yep.
It doesn't mean I spoil them. Doesn't mean that I give them whatever they want or kowtow to them. No, we give them the tools they need to make a better life. And that's what happened with my father. We talk about, you mentioned that, we saw socialism and communism fail everywhere. My father in 1960 defected from Cuba, left his family,
right.
saw his mother twice in 35 years, saw his father once since then. His phone calls to Cuba, to his family on a weekly basis were monitored by the government. They thought he was a high-ranking elected official or appointed official in the government or something, maybe a spy or something. And all he was a neighbor. He was a neighborhood aide who helped people find affordable homes. That's what he did for the town of Brookhaven. And but it failed in Cuba. It failed in Venezuela. It's failed everywhere. It failed in the Soviet Union. And how we want to bring it back here? It's just crazy. Right. We're supposed to learn from history.
And I kind of want to point out that you being the son of an immigrant, right? Somebody who defected from Cuba, leaving communism, right? On the national stage, people would almost think you would be a left-leaning person. But here you are as the chairman of the Republican Party in Suffolk County.
Absolutely. And that started, I got to tell you, around the kitchen table.
Yeah.
My father and my mom, who's Puerto Rican, so I'm a Cuba Rican. The A in the middle is for American. My father would tell me he was upset when there was illegal immigrants because he did it the right way.
Right.
Now he saw that maybe it made it tough for his brother to try and defect, and his brother never was able to defect or come from Cuba. So he never saw him again since he left in 1960. Spoke to him a couple of times, but you're really cutting the line and cheating the groups that are doing the right way.
Right.
The ability to get this life.
It's unfair.
It is unfair. And that's why you see a lot of the Hispanic community, those that did it the right way, they want legal immigration. Legal immigration is good.
They want border security.
Yes, they want border security. We want to know who's coming in, what they're doing, what they're going to be, and whatnot. They want them to assimilate into our society, not that we should become from the tyranny they're running away from.
Right. Don't Cuba my America.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Just like California my Arizona.
Yeah,
right?
don't New York the city my Suffolk.
Right. Exactly.
I think it's a falsehood from the left too that they shout racism every time the illegal immigration thing comes up.
Thanks. How can you be racist when I'm a Hispanic American and I'm talking about securing the border? When your policies and your positions have no basis and they're failed and they're flawed, you name call. It's a racist. It's a fascist.
Right.
It's a Nazi. Why? Because, that will garner attention, but no one will look at the fact that you have an empty debate.
Right. Exactly.
An empty debate.
Exactly. You've lost the debate and now you have to resort to name calling.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Jesse, we appreciate you coming on and spending so much time here with us today. I think we've touched on a lot of topics, both, locally and even nationally too. Are there any parting words you want to leave out there for the people of Suffolk County?
What I would just say to the people of Suffolk County is that keep the faith. And I truly want to first and foremost thank you for entrusting your vote and your confidence into the Republicans in our towns to lead your towns and the Republicans to lead in the county of Suffolk. We will not fail you. We will hear you. If you think we're doing something wrong, let us know. If everything's going right, that's fine. Go around the lives. You're busy enough. You have to raise your children. You have to you have to earn a living. You have to raise your business and such as that. That's fine. The Republicans will take care of the fundamentals of government for you. But we're here for you to make Suffolk County safer, more secure, and more affordable. And we will continue to do that because you have our honest oath. And that is what we're here for. We're not here for anything else.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for joining us today. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks.